Good evening and welcome to this evening's Cabinet meeting on Tuesday the 20th of August. My name is Councillor David Thomas and Leader of the Council, and will be chairing this evening's meeting. So before we start, good evening and welcome to the members of the public. Just like to announce that we are not expecting a fire alarm. Should the alarm sound, please exit via the nearest exit to your right-hand side and gather in the car park next to the library. Could I please ensure that all mobile phones and electronic devices are turned to silent? As we're operating hybrid meetings, I'll pass over to the clerk who will explain how that will work. Thank you.
Thank you. Please note that we're using hybrid meeting arrangements with officers and councillors who are not members of the Cabinet having the option to join the meeting via Zoom. And we're joined this evening in the virtual room by Councillors Hannah Stevens, Councillors Magley, Douglas Dunbar and Councillor Twelves. We are also live streaming this meeting via the Council's YouTube channel to encourage more people to engage in our public meetings. The proceedings of the meeting will also be recorded. Please can I remind everyone to use their microphones when speaking and to turn them off when you've finished. Please can attendees present in person refrain from watching the live stream or joining the Zoom link, as this will cause interference for our viewers. Anyone attending the meeting remotely must use their raise hand function when they wish to speak and to declare any interest at the appropriate time for councillors. If anyone attending the meeting remotely loses connection, the meeting will continue and they will have the option to follow the meeting via the YouTube live stream. Thank you.
Thank you indeed. Item 1 is apologies. Delighted to say that we have no apologies this evening. So we will move straight on to item 2, and that is to confirm as a correct record the minutes of this Cabinet of the 11th of July. Happy to move that from the Chair. Seconder.
Happy to second, Chairman.
Thank you very much. All those in favour, please indicate. Thank you very much. That is unanimous. Item 3, disclosure of interests for any member who may have a pecuniary or a non-pecuniary interest. If you'd like to declare that now, please. None noted. We have no urgent items this evening, and therefore we will move straight into item 6, which is the Hackney Carriage tariff increase. Councillor Tranter.
Thank you, Chair. The Local Government Act of 1976 allows the Council to set the maximum level of charges to be levied by all Hackney carriages operating under its control. The Council does not have powers to set fares for journeys in private hire vehicles. The tariff was last reviewed in March 2022 by the Licensing Committee. Prior to this, the tariff had been updated in October 2019. Following a review of process and obtaining specialist legal advice, it has been determined that the setting of the table of fares, or tariff, is an executive function of the Council. Therefore, this review and any future reviews are to be considered by Cabinet members. A letter was received from the Torbay Licensing Taxi Association requesting that an increase to be considered. The TLTA have advised that they currently represent 90 licensed drivers from the Hackney carriage trade. The table of fares should be set to enable sustainable income for drivers, future investment in vehicles, and to clearly set rates that minimise the opportunity for overcharging or confusion. I therefore recommend that members support option 1 of the report, which is to accept the proposed amendments to the tariff as detailed in the report so that officers can carry out a public consultation as set out in the prescribed process under Section 65 of the Local Government Act 1976. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Billings.
Yes, Chair. I rise to second on this. Looking through the report, it's clear in paragraph in section 2 going onwards that the proposed increases are modest when compared against the context of inflation, and operators will have received inevitable cost background increases in fuel and other things, and therefore it's only appropriate that that the council reflects that by setting some revised charges. So I'm delighted to second option 1, that the proposed amendments in the submitted report be approved, and that we carry out the public consultation in accordance with the prescribed process. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So do we have any questions or debate around the Cabinet table? Councillor Lewis.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Chairman. I think I give full support to this report and the increase in the charges. I think it has been a difficult time for Hackney Carriage taxi owners, drivers, with the upset in the Strand. I think they will see the advantage of that once it's finished, but it's gone through 12 months and it has been difficult. The same with Torbay Road until we opened the road up, as you know, 12 months ago. And of course, before that, they had COVID. So this is now going out for consultation. And I think it is important that Torbay Council, that councillors and certainly the Cabinet give the Hackney Carriage taxi drivers our full support. And I think we'll do that today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. No further comments from around the table. Councillor Long, I understand you indicated.
Just a very brief comment, Mr. Chairman, just to say that you and I were both on a licensing committee recently which involved taxi drivers, and I distinctly remember at that meeting reference being made to taxi drivers being put off working particularly at night because of the level of fares and the extra cost that might be incurred because of the nighttime economy. So I think that this revised fare increase can only help with that. Thank you.
Thank you indeed for your support. Anybody in the virtual room indicating? No? Okay, thank you very much indeed. And I think it is important for any viewers to recognise that this is, allows this documentation to go out to consultation, and we would really urge as many people as possible to complete the consultation. It'll then come back to the Cabinet where we will make a final decision based on the findings of that consultation. Councillor Chanter.
Yes, just in response to Councillor Long, that we are very aware of what's going on with the nighttime economy, and we are getting more enforcement down at ranks eventually when all that's sorted, and especially more support around the NHS contract with making sure that people that have partied very hard when they get put into taxis, that there's a bit more support around that as well. So we are looking into supporting taxi drivers into the future as well.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I think we shall move to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. Thank you, that is unanimous. We move straight on to item 7, which is the leasing of commercial business units at Lymington Enterprise Centre in Torquay. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm very supportive of this. Must be about 15, 16 years ago where I was delighted. I think you were probably with me as you were Chairman of Planning at the time, where we went down to Lymington Road and the Innovation Centre was open, which has been a success for the council and for businesses coming forward. This is the next stage forward, I would suggest, where we have the commercial business units at Lymington Road, 5 of them. It's slightly a technical report because it is actually outlining anything over 10,000 over has to come to Cabinet for approval for the rent. But it does mean that we have 5 new business units virtually in the centre of town. You can certainly walk down into the town within 5 or 10 minutes. And I'm sure that they will be popular and again will help for the employment of the town and for the centre of town. It's not every day that you get new business units that close to the centre of town. So I welcome that, and I hope that other members of the Cabinet will give it full support. Thank you.
Thank you indeed, Councillor. I understand this one's being seconded by Councillor Jackie Thomas.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm very happy to second this proposal. The renting of these recently completed 5 brand new industrial units at Lymington Road definitely encourage and increase local employment to our local area. It's always good news when these units will bring investment to this district of Torbay. I'm pleased that Unit 5 has now been agreed, and I'm sure it won't be long before the other 4 units follow suit and suitable tenants found. The location of these units is very convenient for employees wishing to use public transport to get themselves to and from work. And they also tick the climate change box by being fully well insulated and have solar panels on the roof, contributing to reduced electricity demand for each unit. I'm very happy to second. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor. Open up to the Cabinet for any questions, any debate.
Can I just say, Chairman, that a slight change in the recommendation, it should read, although my fellow Cabinet member, I'm sure, would like to be the portfolio, but he has enough on his plate already, that it should be the Cabinet member for place development and economic growth, not pride in place and parking. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. That is noted. And for the just for the record, Councillor Jackie Thomas, you're happy to confirm that change as a seconder?
Happy to confirm, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. This one's quite straightforward. Councillor Long. Sorry, I couldn't almost see your hand there behind the pillar, to be honest.
Comes from being so svelte, I'm sure. I'm not quite sure why people are laughing, but just to say I was very pleased to hear that Councillor Lewis is supportive of this scheme, because I distinctly remember when in opposition that yourself and Councillor Thomas were not so supportive and were even against the extra funding to get these units over the line. So I'm glad that there has been a road to Damascus conversion now that they're actually built, and you're happy to take all the credit for them when they were finished. So pleased to see that you're being supportive now. And it's a shame that all councillors weren't more involved in that publicity either, but that's the story of the times, unfortunately. And like Councillor Thomas J, I'm also very pleased with the environmental credentials of this scheme, and it's just as well the previous administration was so on the ball to make sure that they were involved in that. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Long. I'm delighted to hear that we're keeping you happy this evening. That's fantastic. Shall we move straight to the vote then, please? All those in favour, please indicate. Unanimous. And that's a unanimous decision. Thank you very much indeed. Item 8 is the budgeting monitoring for the revenue and capital outturn forecast. Councillor Tyerman. Use your microphone, sir.
Thank you. The budget monitoring report for Q1 has been discussed at overview and scrutiny. A number of recommendations came out from overview and scrutiny that were not actually related to the report itself, and they've certainly been taken note of and being driven forward. There were no recommendations that reflected on a decision needed by Cabinet or by Council. So I'm just proposing now that Cabinet notes the forecast revenue outturn position and amendments made to the published 2024-25 capital programme by the Section 151 officer following the approval of the 2023-24 outturn report by Council on the 18th of July 2024.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor. I'm happy to second this one from the Chair, and in all honesty, don't expect too much debate on this one. We have already taken this one through Council, but I'm happy to open up for debate either in the virtual room or in the physical room. I'm not seeing any hands at all, so in which case I'll move straight to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. Thank you. That is unanimous. We move on to item 9 and the first outing this evening for Councillor Bye. I think we may hear a little more from you as the evening progresses. Thank you, Councillor. We're going to be talking, my apologies, the proposal for a locality model to support our children in Torbay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And one of 5 children's services related items this evening's cabinet. I've never heard it referred to as an outing before, but there we go. I'm a great one for outings. So this particular item, I think the best thing is to start by reading out the recommendation, which is what I will propose to do with each of the items that have come forward. But this is a hugely, hugely important decision for Cabinet to embark on consultation. It is to embark on consultation because we really must do better for children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities. So the recommendation that consultation on a locality model be undertaken by the local area partnership as set out at Appendix 1. So it's a partnership consultation. It's not just something the council is doing on its own. And the outcome of the consultation, together with recommendations on the new proposed locality model for higher needs and special educational needs and disability services, be presented to a future Cabinet meeting. And then 3.2, that Cabinet notes that the locality model provides the opportunity to ensure that the MySpace building at Parkfield is utilised to provide maximum benefit for children and young people in Torbay through a vibrant and active use of the site at all times. That in this respect, the Chief Executive be instructed to work with community and voluntary sector partners to develop a proposal to be presented to Cabinet at a future meeting, taking into account the local model proposals. But I want to stress, please, as I see it, the importance and the debate tonight is about meeting the needs of children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities. And I do want to read, I'm sure you have all read the report, but 1.1 at the introduction to the report, in 2021, a joint inspection between Ofsted and the Care Quality Commission, CQC, found that Torbay SEND systems work in silos and do not promote collaboration easily. In addition, they found that parents felt they had to fight for an EHCP and wait for a specialist assessment or diagnosis. This is the important bit. Since 2021, a huge amount of improvement work has been happening across the local area. However, parents are not seeing the full impact for them and their children. We're simply not making the progress that we need to make, and we will be judged poorly. So the proposal being brought to this Cabinet is the culmination of a 6-month review by council officers into the key challenges faced by our vulnerable groups of children and young people in Torbay. This proposal is for a transformative change to the way in which we're able to support high needs, SEND and vulnerable groups. We are all too aware of the national challenges in this area. It's not a unique problem to Torbay, but nationally this is an issue, especially in the area of SEND, with an 11% rise in EHCPs nationally, continued lengthy waiting lists for health services and support, and the continued pressure that early support services are having amidst the budgetary pressures in our schools and communities. Torbay, with its high levels of deprivation, high needs and SEND, are feeling these challenges particularly strongly in all settings and age groups across the Bay. Although we know that many key areas for improvement identified in the SEND local area inspection that I've just referred to have made progress, we need a system change to enable us to make a difference to the children and young people in Torbay with high and additional needs. This proposal seeks to remedy this with a fundamental change to how support services operate, whereby early support can be given without the need for an educational health and care plan, lengthy needs assessments and diagnosis. This proposal is to co-produce a locality model in the local area a type of model that many other local areas have adopted to date. So it's all about early help, early intervention, and the graduated response. So a locality model splits an area into small geographical clusters where local schools work together to solve the challenges within their own geographical area. The vision is that all children and young people get the support they need early from their local school and community without waiting and without needs escalating. I also hope that it will lead to better relationships between schools and the wider community. With oversight from the local authority, resource from the Higher Needs Block Fund is redeployed to each cluster so they can create flexible support for local young people to have access to immediately without the need to gain a diagnosis or to apply for an EHCP. Cluster management boards ensure that the right support is deployed in the right place at the right time to maximise support for our children and young people. I would therefore like to endorse that this locality proposal is taken forward to a full consultation. So this evening is about starting a consultation, and it's a consultation from September through to December. So it's not just going to be a quick week or a quick fortnight. We really do want to involve all our schools, children and young people, families and carers, so that we have a full consultation to create a new Torbay system for higher needs, and would like the associated resources at Parkfield to be used to best effect to ensure the social inclusion of the most vulnerable young people in our community. We really are failing some of our most vulnerable young people. We know in our schools there are issues in terms of exclusions, attendance, families and carers and children who've basically given up on school. We have exceptionally high numbers now of children who are educated other than at school. So we've got to do things differently, we've got to do things better, and I think this is the first step. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you indeed, Councillor. Councillor Tyerman, I understand you're prepared to second this evening.
I am prepared to second this, and I endorse everything that has been said. I think I'm pleased that this consultation's being taken over a reasonable period of time. I think it's incredibly important that we get this right. And I think it's incredibly important that as many people who are impacted by the issues of SEND and people that are working with that have the opportunity to consider it, to think about it, to discuss it, and to then contribute to the consultation. So I hope there will be a large engagement with this.
Thank you, Councillor. Move over to questions or debate. So let's just go out of the Cabinet, if I may, for a moment, and then we'll come back in just a moment. Councillor Law.
Thank you. We often get confused with one another. I'm not sure why. I just wanted to actually speak in support of the locality model. It's been taken up by a lot of very high-performing local authorities throughout the country. It's a national move towards this. It's based on some of the papers that came out during the previous government. And so I think it's really good that we're actually on the forefront of this and when we're making these moves. Our children, I will absolutely agree with Councillor By, our children with special educational needs and disability were let down for far too long in Torbay, for a long, long time. I experienced that difficulty myself with my own children, so I'm absolutely delighted with this. The locality model, and I think that's perhaps what hasn't brought up, it's about actually much more about integrating our children with special educational needs and disability into their local communities, into their local schools. And every child wants to just be with and like their peers. So I just want to say well done for this to Nancy and the whole team and Councillor By. And I look forward to the consultation. Could we make sure it's sent to all councillors so that we can get that out through our network? Because I think this is a really, really important consultation, this one. And this is a group of parents that have felt overlooked for far too long. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Long.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. And I don't have much in common with Councillor Bye, but it's not my first outing either. Just to say that I want to be supportive of this, absolutely, and I've said it once before, but I'll say it again, that I'd like to thank Councillor Meehan for taking the time to give me a call. Councillor Meehan, sorry for that abusive comment, for Nancy Meehan rather, for taking the time to help me make sure I understood it, and it makes absolute sense to me, and I think it will help us have a more sustainable model to tackle the send issues that not only Torbay faces, but it's a common problem across the country. Councillor Timon, I've got his title right, was absolutely right that we have to get it right. But what we also have to get right is the wider picture of making sure that the wider community are also happy about the particular place where it's all going to happen. And I know that there are some practical solutions that need to happen to make that happen, and to stop the wider community and community groups being sceptical, but I'm sure we can get that right as part of it all, if we can all work together. Thank you.
Thank you indeed. And Councillor Cowell.
Thank you, Chair. And I too fully support the model. Locality makes absolute sense. Encouraging people to be able to engage within their community makes sense in terms of that social cohesion and building the confidence of individual people. There is one element, and you won't be surprised to hear me raise the issue of Parkfield as part of that solution, particularly around the post-16. It's interesting that we're looking to develop clusters across the bay, but the post-16 could be concentrated in Paynton at the MySpace facility. It's always...
Sorry, my apologies. The monitoring officer has just asked to speak at this point.
Sorry, Councillor Cowell, to interrupt. It's just really important, members, that we are in open meeting and we don't veer into what is part 2 matters. So I would just ask members to be mindful of that, and if necessary, that I will have to interject again if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Please continue.
Thank you. There's always this feeling that the MySpace facility, which is mentioned in the report as part of the cluster proposals, has been the go-to for possible reprovisioning. And we've seen it before when there was the attempt to build the Torbay school, and then, of course, when MTS went in there. The most important element of the consultation that we embark upon over the next few months are with the stakeholders that are engaged at that facility, and that we remember exactly what the purpose of MySpace was when it was first visioned. So I think we need to make sure that as part of the element of the recommendation where the Chief Executive is engaging in that regard, that we make sure that we consider all options for that building and that site, and that even particularly around the management, so that we make sure that the co-design of that facility meets the vision of the MySpace project all those years ago. So that is just my call, and I know that there has already been engagement around that, and I hope that there will be positive outcomes that meet everybody's needs and that element of the locality. But overall, it is the right thing to be doing, and I, like others, hope that we encourage as many people as possible to engage with the consultation between now and, I think Councillor Bye said it was December. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And this follows on really from Councillor Cowell, speaking not only as a member of the Cabinet, but also one of the local councillors for Preston, where my place, Parkfield, is situated. And I just want to make sure that when we go forward, we don't make mistakes that we have made in the past, and that we do engage with the local community, the youth of Torbay as well, because they're so important, the children that we want the best for. The local councillors are engaged, and of course the voluntary sector. And it does say in the report that it will come back. It'll be fed into the Chief Executive, who will then bring it back to the Cabinet. And I think that is the important thing. Councillor Cowell is quite right. We've got to make sure that we start off the way we want to go on, with the right management, the right way of working. And if we do that, I think my place, Parkfield, will have a great future going forward. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. We've spoken a little bit about 3.2, but ultimately Councillor Bai spoke to us about the locality model, what this report is all about. We must make sure that we, although 3.2 is really important, must make sure that this is, we're looking at a new Torbay system for those with special education needs, for those with higher needs, and this effectively allows that consultation period to start to cover from September to December. When it comes back, there'll be a fuller report, and we'll talk about all of the different bits and pieces within the scheme. But I think we've taken all of the debate. I'm going to go back to Councillor Bai to sum up before we go to the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really would like to say thank you to both Councillor Law and Councillor Long. It's rather odd that we can't see each other, but I can see Councillor Cowell if I lead forward, and I'll obviously include him in my thanks. But I do appreciate, the support, and it's all about working together. We've succeeded in children's services in Torbay, in my view, because we do work together for children and young people. And this is all about a new way of doing things for those the most vulnerable, young people, children with special educational needs and disabilities, who we are not serving well at the moment. And that is not in any way a criticism of people who are working, as it were, in the coal face, but it's the way that the system is organised, with people working in silos and a rather patchy availability of services. I should have said, and I'm remiss of me not to have said, thank you to our Director of Children's Services, Nancy Meehan, and her professional colleagues in getting us to this stage, all the work that has gone into preparing this report, all the meetings that I know have taken place, and trying to bring people on the journey, that cliche of the moment. We're all on the journey. So I think we had a good debate. I really am sincerely thankful and appreciation of the comments and support from other councillors, and I very much hope that we get the unanimous support of Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In which case we shall move to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. That is unanimous. As we move on to item 10, the recommissioning and procurement of 16+ supported accommodation provision. Councillor Bai.
As you know, I'm not very good at all this stuff, so I'm just going to get back onto the right bit of the, because that was on a separate piece of paper, not a piece of paper, I wish it was on a piece of paper. Right, we're going to now move on to the recommissioning procurement of 16+ supported accommodation. Let's look at the recommendation that the Director of Children's Services be given delegated authority to award the contracts for 16+ supported accommodation provision following the successful completion of the procurement process and in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Children's Services. In summary, Torbay Children's Social Care currently commissions a range of supported accommodation options for young people aged 16 to 25 who are cared for, care experienced, or at risk of experiencing homelessness. In 2020, commissioning and procurement activity successfully awarded block contracts totaling 60 units and placements across 3 providers, alongside the development of a 16+ supported accommodation framework. The placements are made up of the following lots: providing a range of supported accommodation options for Torbay's young people. So the first lot is a supported lodgings host accommodation for young people aged 16 to 21 who are cared for children and or care experienced young people up to 25 if eligible, and for homeless young people or youngsters at risk of homelessness aged 16 to 25. 2A is a supported accommodation higher needs multi-occupancy units for cared for children and or care experienced young people with more complex needs, age 16 to 18. 2B is a multi-occupancy units for cared for children and or care experienced young people as part of a step down from care and or step down from more intensive post-16 accommodation provision eligible and for homeless young people or young at risk of homelessness aged 16 to 25. And a further lot 3, the Torbay Young Parents Service, which is supported accommodation for young parents who are aged 16 to 24 years, a unit of support as a household, so may include both parents and their children. The block and framework contracts were awarded on a 3-year initial term with the option of a 2-year extension. These contracts commenced on the 1st of April 2021 and have now entered the extension period of the contract. The contract end date is the 31st of March 2026. In preparation for the contract end date, a thorough needs analysis and options appraisal is underway, led by Children's Services Commissioning to inform future commissioning and procurement activity. This is an essential piece of work to ensure the provision commissioned meets the needs for Torbay's young people. This work is also taking into consideration the recent legislative changes for supported accommodation, which was introduced in October 2023. The Supported Accommodation England Regulations 2023, the regulations require that any supported accommodation provider accommodating a looked after child or care leaver aged 16 or 17 must be registered with Ofsted. A procurement timeline has been developed with key procurement activity due to take place in mid to late 2025. New contracts will commence from the 1st of April 2026. In anticipation of this significant piece of procurement activity, the Cabinet report has been prepared to inform Cabinet of the work that is underway and to request the following, and that's the recommendation that I have just read out. So we all know that there is pressure on accommodation for young people, again a very vulnerable group, care leavers and those in particular need and those at risk of homelessness, and this is to ensure that there's appropriate accommodation from 2026 onwards. I've sat as part of Children's Services Practice Week on the Youth Homelessness panel, and I have to say, you know, it's incredibly difficult trying to find accommodation for some of these youngsters. So this is an important piece of work, and I hope colleagues will support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bye. Councillor Lewis to second this one.
Very happy to second. Give it my full support. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Any questions? Any comments? Any support? Everybody happy with Councillor Bye's presentation? In which case, let's move to the vote then. All those in favour, please indicate.
Unanimous.
Thank you. That is unanimous. And let's stay with Councillor Bye as we move on to item 11, and this will be the Fostering Annual Report.
I didn't even turn my microphone off, so there we go. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to start by reading the recommendation. I think the recommendation is actually incorrect. A little bit of a mistake here, so I think that this is where I can show that I've actually read it. It reads here that the Cabinet endorses the Fostering Annual Report 2022-2023. I think it's the Fostering Report 2023-2024, as set out in Appendix 1 to the submitted report, and that is published in accordance with Council's requirements. So it does need to change, please, to 2023-2024. It is a statutory requirement established by the National Minimum Standards for Fostering for each local authority to produce and publish an annual report. For our cared for children, it is really important that they are able, if at all possible, to live in Torbay and as close as possible to their communities and schools. Nationally, we are seeing falling numbers of fostering families, and this is a particular issue in the Bay as well. Rather than reading what's been prepared kindly for me, I would suggest we look at page 139 within the report We Are Family. On page 139, there's a little box that does highlight the activity, the foster recruitment performance, and you can see in the various boxes over the years we have the number of inquiries, the number of approvals, and the conversion rate. And then the number of inquiries in the year that I'm referring to, 2023, 2024, was 65, so a significant reduction on the previous year and previous years. The number of approvals, just 4, and that's a conversion rate of only, well, of just 6%. The actual rate each year is quite modest, given the number of inquiries that come forward, so just 4 approvals. So that is not due to a lack of activity or effort by our fostering team, who have been out and about at more events in the year, that is the report year, than previously, but it is unfortunately a reflection of wider issues. And there are a number of factors which have impacted upon this performance, factors such as the cost of living and individual financial considerations continue to be cited by both prospective and current fostering families as influencing factors when making the decision to begin to or continue to foster. Sufficiency and recruitment continue to be a challenge, and a number of government-led initiatives aligned to the ambition of stable homes built on love are being implemented to address this. Despite increasing event activity by up to 36% in terms of attendance at events and fostering drop-in sessions, the lower generation of inquiries has had a direct impact on the number of fostering families who have been recruited in this financial year. Our financial strategy to secure sufficiency of placements requires the fostering service to aim to increase the net number of fostering households by a minimum of 10 per year. And you can see if 10 is the target, we are not reaching that target. At the time of the report being written, there were 298 cared for children as of the 31st of March 2024, of which 77% were in in-house foster care provision and 49% in long-term placements, compared to 39% the previous year. So having said all that about the pressure on recruitment, at the moment we are kind of holding our own, doing rather better in terms of securing placements, but there's clearly problems around the corner unless we increase our recruitment. In March 2024, the total number of approved fostering households was 80. This is a decrease of 5 mainstream carers from the 85 as the end of March the previous year. Throughout 2023-24 financial year, there have been no cases through the independent review mechanism process. In that year, 12 fostering families were deregistered, of which 9 were mainstream fostering families for the reasons outlined below. 5 were personal reasons around family circumstances, 1 due to ill health, 1 due to lack of availability concerns, 1 carer adopted their foster child, so that's a very good outcome. 1 carer was deregulated due to concerns, and very sadly, 1 foster carer passed away. So the fostering performance as of the 31st of March 2023 stands at foster carers up-to-date trainings at 64%, foster carers with up-to-date DBS, security checks 100%, foster carers up-to-date medical checks 98%, foster carers with up-to-date annual reviews 87%. And there's been fluctuation in regards to the percentage of foster carers post 1 year who have completed the minimum TSD training. This is an important part of the fostering journey to ensure that foster carers have access to learning and development, which includes support and enhances the care stability they provide. I'd like to conclude the report. We're trying our hardest to support our foster carers. A lot of activity goes on. And fun things, which I very much enjoy going on, like the Train of Lights in the run-up to Christmas. And I know there was a super fair play day down at the fair while I was away, and we have introduced or we're supporting the Mockingbird model of support, where foster carers have support from fellow foster carers. So I want to say a big thank you to all those who are working hard to recruit and to support our foster carers. A very big thank you indeed for our foster carers for all the amazing work that they do. When we had a discussion the other afternoon and with the Chief Executive, as well as the Director and yourself, Mr. Chairman, then I said, what can I do as lead member for Children's Services? What's the thing that we can do to make a difference? And absolutely, the Director came back and said it is to highlight the need to recruit new additional foster carers. And I hope that is a message all members can take into their community. We depend on them, the love and support they give for our cared for children. Sadly, we're not recruiting the number that we need. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Going to move across to Councillor Tranter, who I understand is happy to second. And maybe you'd also be so kind as to endorse the date in the, the change of the date, 2023 to 2024. Thank you.
Yes, I endorse the change of date, and I'd like to second this after reading the report. I was really quite surprised at how holistic the whole approach is, and I really thought the Mockingbird, the family model, is really good as well. It's not just about placing a child with a family and that's it. It's the whole holistic approach, so I thought that was really great. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Questions, debate, comments from the Cabinet, from outside of the Cabinet, Councillor Law, thank you very much, and also virtually. Don't forget to raise your hand if you're in the virtual room. Councillors, if you want to come in, you're more than welcome. Thank you. Councillor Law.
Thank you. I actually want to put on record our thanks from all of us, from the Independents and the Lib Dem group, for all the fantastic work that our foster carers, obviously the service, but our thanks particularly to our foster carers. We know they work so hard, they're so important. I also want to celebrate some of the good things in this report, such as the permanency we're achieving for our children, because we don't just take our children into our care, we look for sustainable, good, healthy futures for them. So it's really good to see that in terms of our permanence, and I brought this with me because I think we're actually, we're holding our own out there with the national averages for that. I also wanted to say about what was the other thing I wanted to say? Was about the number of children placed more than 20 miles away. I'm sorry to see that has risen. I understand there are reasons and around why that should happen, but it would be good, as always, to see the children that need to be close to home that are as close as they can be to home. So this is a great report, as always, very full, and it's just mainly wanted to say my utmost thanks to, I remember what it was special guardianship orders. The fact that we are actually way above the national average in that, and we do really, really well on that, our kinship carers and our special guardianship orders. And just a well done to that, because I know that nationally we do a lot better than many local authorities for that. So well done for that side of things. So, yep, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further comments? In which case we'll move back to Councillor Bye.
Once again, I'd like to say thank you through you, Mr. Chairman, to Councillor Law for her kind, positive comments, drawing out, what is the good news in the report. I was highlighting the challenge, but absolutely, there's a lot of good work. This year, although it would be within the 2024-2025 report, we actually went out to the air show with the fostering recruitment. That was the first time we've done that. So the team really is working ever so hard. And please, if anyone can think of places to go and spaces to go to recruit, let me know, let the director know. But thank you again, Councillor Law.
Thank you. The recommendation has been proposed and seconded. So all those in favour, please indicate. Thank you very much. That one is unanimous also. Move on to item 12, which is the local authority designated officer. Will be referred to as the LADO as we discuss this. The annual report for 23-24. The date is correct on this one. Councillor Bye.
Thank you so much indeed, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to start again with reading the recommendation that the Cabinet endorses the Local Authority Designated Officer LADO Annual Report 2023-2024 set out at Appendix 1 to the submitted report to be published in accordance with Council's requirement. So a few background notes for members of the Cabinet and colleagues. The local authority designated officer responds to allegations made about people who work with children. The statutory guidance Working Together 2023 sets out the requirements for all agencies providing services for children to have procedures in place for reporting and managing allegations against staff and volunteers. The criteria for LADO involvement applies when an individual working or volunteering with children has behaved in a way that has harmed a child or may have harmed a child, possibly committed a criminal offence against or related to a child, behaved towards a child or children in a way that indicates they may pose a risk of harm to children, behaved or may have behaved in a way that indicates they may not be suitable to work with children. Whilst there is not a statutory requirement for each local authority to produce and publish an annual report in respect of the work of the LADO, there is an expectation that one is completed to inform both the local authority and partner agencies of the number and nature of contacts over the period and to identify trends and learning from the data to inform any local action plans. Therefore, it is entirely appropriate that it comes to Cabinet this evening. Some of the key areas to note is that overall consultations with the LADO have remained stable, 410 in 22-23 and 412 in 23-24. That's very stable. Many of these consultations are due to the referrer seeking assurance that LADO threshold is met. A high volume of consultations during this period related to allegations against education staff. These came from a combination of 19 from early years and 147 from schools' academies, totalling 166 of the overall consultations. It is positive to see a decrease in the consultations in respect of our cared for children, from 109 in 2022-23 to just 84 in 23-24. Often allegations are made once a child has left their placement or during a time of instability. There is ongoing work between the LADO and the fostering service, as well as with residential and unregulated supported accommodation providers. It is important that when children come into our care, they feel safe. Of the 412 LADO consultations, 185 did not meet threshold. 25 were referred to another local authority. 9 did not actually work with the child. 38 were to give information and advice to support partners. 9 had an outcome of no further action, 20 related to chaperone interviews, 16 were referred on to CQC, and there are presently still 110 pending. When you look at the figures over recent years, there has been an increase to this sort of plateau from last year and this year from much lower levels, going back a few years, and I think that is due to the increase in the awareness of the LADO service. So I think there's been a higher profile of activity, and that of course has made more contacts. So it's absolutely key that we ensure children and young people in Torbay are safe. The LADO report, I think, indicates the work that is undertaken to ensure that they are kept safe. So I very much hope that colleagues will support the recommendation and note this report. Thank you.
Thank you. I understand Councillor Jackie Thomas is going to second this one.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm delighted to second the Local Authority Designated Officer, LADO, Annual Report 2023-2024. I think Councillor Bye has explained the details of this report really comprehensively, so I feel there isn't much more that I can add. I'm sure that if there are any further questions, then Councillor Bye will be more than happy to answer them. So thank you, Chair. Happy to second.
Thank you. Are there any comments on the LADO report? Thank you very much indeed. In which case, Councillor Bye, I'm going to move straight to the vote on this one. All those in favour, please indicate. Thank you very much. That one is also unanimous. And so, for the final report to be presented by Councillor Bye this evening, it is item 13, and this is the IRO annual report. Thank you, Councillor Bye.
Thank you indeed. My fifth and final outing, as Councillor Long put it, at the beginning of the meeting or earlier in the meeting. I have to say this particular report is an incredibly comprehensive record of activity in children's services in terms of our work with cared for children. If someone wants to make a start in getting an understanding of what a council does in terms of how we care for 300 children, I think this very comprehensive report gives a very good flavour of what we do. And I'd like to start off by saying thank you again to the Director of Children's Services, her professional colleagues. The recommendation is that the Cabinet endorses the Independent Reviewing Service, IRO, annual report set out at Appendix 1 to the submitted report, and the publication of this in accordance with the legislative requirements outlined in the report. So it's the IROs who overview the work of children's services. The Children and Young Persons Act 2008 and subsequent 2010 statutory guidance require that each local authority complete an annual report detailing the work of the Independent Reviewing Service, IRO, for cared for children. The annual report should be presented to the Director of Children's Services, lead member for children, and the Corporate Parenting Board at minimum, and should also be available as a public document on the relevant council website. In Torbay, we believe it is important that all councillors have sight of the work that takes place to support our cared for children, hence bringing this report to Cabinet this evening. The work of the IROs is to ensure that the children's services meets the needs of the cared for children that they have corporate parenting responsibility for, that we have corporate parenting responsibility for. They oversee the cared for child's care plan and ensure everyone contributing to the plan fulfills their legal obligations. 803 cared for reviews were held in 2023-2024, and of these 96% were completed within the required statutory timeframes. This is slightly better than the previous year at 94%. The IROs have an important role in making sure that children who are cared for by the local authority have good outcomes and that children's services have high aspirations for them. Some important areas to note in the report are the decrease in numbers of cared for children towards the end of the 2024 financial year. The report shows that in Torbay we had 298 cared for children on the 31st of March this year, as compared with 314 at the end of March in 2023. Torbay also has quite a high percentage of children placed away from Torbay, however remains similar to the previous year's figures. The reasons for this is understood to be often in line with either child's wishes and feelings or best interests, i.e. kinship care placements, children placed for adoption, or unaccompanied asylum-seeking children being placed in more urban settings. We know that a number of our UAS cohort have moved towards Exeter, or in fact to London in some cases. The figure of 34% for 2023-2024 is slightly higher than the previous year, 31% in 2022-2023. That was the point that Councillor Law was referring to just on the previous item. It is important that when a child comes into care that they have the least amount of disruption possible. Children who move from placement to placement can struggle with attachment, but also these moves can impact on their education and the ability to make connections in the area they are living. For our children in care in Torbay, we have a small number of children who we have not yet been able to find them a placement that can respond to their very complex needs. This means that our placement stability is impacted on, with a number of children moving from placement to placement. Part of the pressures continue to be the national placement sufficiency challenges and residential providers giving immediate notice. Cared for children aged 12 to 14 in 2023-2024 were more likely than other children of other ages to experience placement instability, reinforcing the need for ongoing edge of care intervention to support placement stability through investment in the Building Futures team. However, it is also important to note that the work that takes place to secure permanency for Torbay's cared for children has continued to improve, with further progress in adoptions. So 22% of those who ceased to be cared for were adopted, compared to 9% nationally. So that certainly is something that we can be proud of. Also, a high number of those leaving care at 18 who are in a foster placement remain in what is known as staying put arrangements, where they remain in the home of the foster carers post-18. Again, this is significantly higher than the national average, so that there's another thing that we can be proud of. A long-standing challenge and an area identified again for continued improvement over the next year is children and young people's participation in their cared for reviews. However, this year there has been an improvement in participation. In 2022-2023, participation was 79%, whereas this year, 2023-2024, it has increased to 87%. Advocacy sufficiency has been identified as a potential contributory factor here, and there's an area of commissioning that is a current focus. What we do need to improve going forward, it is noted within the report that as a service there is a need to continue to focus on seeking parent and child feedback through additional work on the virtual feedback form, as well as receiving this direct from families. This will continue to help us to improve the services to our children as part of our continuous improvement of children's services. So I'd very much like to thank our IRO services, officers, and very much appreciate this report. I think right at the beginning, something that isn't in the notes that I've just read out, that we are at a permanent, stable team of IROs. So there was a vacancy that has now been filled. So we're actually at capacity with a full permanent team of IROs, which is obviously good news indeed, further good news. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bye. Councillor Billings, I understand that you're going to be seconding this one.
Yeah, yes, that's right, Chairman. I'd like to join Councillor Bye in endorsing the report from the Independent Review Service into Torbay's Cared for Children. The report is really a fantastic reflection of the hard work that's been done by the team. Councillor Bye has gone into great detail about how, through preventative work, numbers of cared for children has gone down, how the service is delivering real timeliness in terms of its reviews, also greater efficiency, and that it's stable in terms of that all posts have been filled. I also read it when I was looking through the report that it congratulates how the team is not only fully staffed but also is stable, because also the service manager and the head of service have been in post for a significant period of time and have been able to bring that experience and stability to bear. And so it was a real pleasure to read it, and a real a good way to reflect the hard work that officers and partners have done to get good outcomes for Torbay Cared for Children, and what an important topic that is that we should be doing well on. So I'd like to second this, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor. Any comments, any questions around the Cabinet table, in the room, online? No, in which case we shall move to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. And that is unanimous. Thank you. That brings us on to the final item this evening. Item 14, which is the establishment of Cabinet Working Parties and Council Local Plan Working Party. Happy to propose this. This is really, from a governance point of view, is a little bit of a cleaning up exercise more than anything. Maybe badged up as, and there has been some concern that it is something else, but it is about governance, and it's about the right places sitting under the right authority. So effectively, the Capital Projects and Old Way Working Party and the Road Network and Travel Working Party effectively sitting underneath the Cabinet, because that is where those decisions reflect to and come back to. And then the Local Plan working party, which effectively requires a council decision sitting under the council. So this report, in its simplicity, creates, at the cabinet level, 3 working parties. The first one, as I've said, the Cabinet Capital Projects Working Party, and terms of reference are included in the paper. The Cabinet Old Way Working Party, and again, terms of reference included in the paper, and the Cabinet Road Network and Travel Working Party, again, terms of reference included in the paper. Political members on there are, on each of those, is 3 Conservatives, 2 Liberal Democrats and 1 Independent. So effectively 3 and 3. Obviously on the Old Way Working Party, there is a requirement for community views in respect of those items and matters to be included within that particular working party. They are the decisions that will basically be made by the Cabinet, and then the Cabinet will recommend to Council that Council establish a local plan working party. We have heard from national government where we are regarding our expected numbers of houses across Torbay to be considerably larger than we are currently accommodating. At the new formula brings it out at 997 per annum. Clearly that makes our local plan very much out of date, and therefore a significant piece of work required to be done by the local plan working party, and quite rightly that should sit underneath the council structure. So they are the 4 items that are included in this report, and I'm quite happy to move that. Councillor Lewis, I understand you're happy to second.
Very happy to second. I think you've covered it all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to open up to any questions, comments, or any debate in the room. Councillor Long.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And any members of the public who are watching now or watch back later on YouTube, or having read the report, would not be able to tell that the majority of working parties mentioned exist already in one form, but as council working parties. And the reasons outlined in 2.1 of the report for creating these new working parties are equally valid for the existing working parties. You could literally cut and paste and they would be equally valid for the current working parties. So if the working parties exist already and the reasons for them are valid, why is this proposal here before us? It's essentially for cabinet control, and therefore, by extension, the minority administration's control of these working parties. And indeed, the chairing of those working parties will be with a cabinet member. I had previously asked for this and other items to be put on hold while the mediation process between the groups on this council and indeed council officers takes place. Unfortunately, the leader of the council has seen fit to trample over that request and proceed with it. And just to say that if passed this evening, if this proposal is passed this evening, then it will put a question mark over the mediation process. Because essentially what the Conservative leadership are saying is that they are paying scant regard for requests for that process from the Liberal Democrat group. And if it is passed tonight, then the Lib Dem group will be having to consider its position on the mediation process. Thank you.
Are there any other further comments? It's always nice to... my apologies, Councillor Lewis. I also have Councillor Billings. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm sorry to hear that from Councillor Long, I really am, because on the one hand, we're told let's get on with it. When was the last Oldway Working Party, etc.? We're trying to streamline this and to have it cross-party working together for the best people of Torbay. And Councillor Long is saying he's going to throw everything away because of that. And I feel that is really sad, because I don't think this is an item that it is important, but not that important. It's not that important to throw everything away for the sake of trying to get on with business, trying to have... Sorry, Councillor Long. Trying to have working parties, which is what we've been pushed for the last few months. When we come up with the goods, we're then criticised for pushing it through. We're pushing it through because we want to hear from the community, we want to hear from other councillors on these important subjects. The sooner we get cracking with it, the sooner the better. And I hope you will reconsider your position of actually throwing all the toys out of the pram at this stage for what I don't believe. It is an important subject, but not that important. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Billings.
Thank you, Chair. One of these working parties that we're talking about comes under my portfolio. And currently, having asked the existing working party group previously to elect a chair, none came forward. So therefore, by default, I assumed the role as being the chairman of what's currently the Transport Working Party. The way I've sought, as the Cabinet member responsible for this area, to run that is in a very inclusive way, in a way that includes councillors who are formal members and those who choose to come along, and to treat all councillors on a similar common basis. Not once have we needed in that working party to have a formal vote on a way forward. It's been done on a way of consensus from, to my understanding, all councillors. So if we're not needing to resort to formal votes in those meetings that have currently taken place during the time that I've been the Cabinet member responsible for this area, and it's my understanding that it's that ability to backstop to those formal votes that is causing the concern, I really think that that's not a strong area we need to be worried about. What we were able to do is bring this forward on a consensus basis, and this provides greater flexibility in terms of the setting of when the meetings occur, to ensure that rather than them being lined up with an existing calendar, they can be brought forward on a basis that is more appropriate to emerging topics as they're required. You can bring forward a meeting when it's needed, rather than necessarily fitting it around an existing predetermined council calendar. Now, that's a greater level of flexibility that's achieved by doing this. I've really struggled to understand, from anything that we've done within the transport area, where the concerns that we've just heard from arise from. I just don't understand how, in the way that the meetings have currently been undertaken, Chair, and currently been run, how those concerns have any foundation. And so to me, from my perspective, from my portfolio, this is a way of actually being more inclusive, allowing greater flexibility of the timing of meetings, so that we can engage councillors more, not less, contrary to some of the concerns that we've heard. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Cowell.
Thank you, Chair, and I share Councillor Long's frustration as to how we've arrived at where we're at with these working parties. This is a response to the fact that the administration decided to scrap the council-sponsored working parties at the annual meeting. It was at that time that the administration chose to reduce the number of committee members across the spectrum at that annual meeting. And the real sad thing is in the lead up to that, there was no consultation or discussion with the leaders of the different groups. Wind forward, and we find ourselves in a position now that there's still not been any consultation. It doesn't reflect a balanced council in terms of how we arrive at these decisions. It's very disappointing that we've not had the opportunity to discuss the way these working parties can operate. Yes, you can hide behind the technicalities of a constitution at any point in time, and we can all do that, and we can all play that game. What it doesn't do, it doesn't make significant strides towards signalling an understanding of the needs of working differently. Yeah, in terms of flexibility of when meetings are called, meetings can be called at any time. They don't have to be at a prescribed calendar. The calendar is agreed at annual council, but then if other meetings need to be put in place because there's an urgent need, then they can be introduced. In terms of votes at a working party, be it a cabinet or a council working party, it doesn't make a jot of difference. Because working parties are not decision-making bodies. They are advisory either to the council or to the cabinet. So that really is a bit of a red herring. And the fact that Councillor Lewis, I think it was, said that, you know, it's not really that important. Well, I think it is. It's important on several levels in terms of democracy, accountability, but also an understanding of the current situation this council finds itself in. We're all working towards a better way of working. This doesn't demonstrate it. So I'm disappointed, and I think it will put a cloud over the process that we're embarking upon in terms of the facilitation towards a more certain way of inclusive ways of working, reflecting the political balance of 1818. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Bye.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it's all been going very well tonight, and I think we've had a very good meeting, and I'm just a bit disappointed that we got to this bit, and it's gone not awry, but it looks as though that things have changed. My only experience of working parties, I have to say, was what used to be called the Transportation Working Party. Why on earth it was ever called the Transportation Working Party, I don't know, because transportation is something completely different. That was about sending people off to Van Diemen's Land, but there we go. It was all about the highways and things. And the reality is that it was chaired for all the time, and I can see Councillor Foster over there, through you, I must address Councillor Foster through you. You know, we didn't know there could be so much fun. We were sort of backbench councillors. I don't think either of us were actually on it, but it was something that we participated in as backbench councillors in the previous administration, and it was chaired by the cabinet member, Councillor Morey, who I think was excellent in that. Nothing ever happened, but we at least managed to get our points of view across. And I can't see how it would work unless the relevant cabinet member was plugged into it. So what I'm saying in my roundabout way, and attempting to be humorous at the end of a very long meeting, and no one's laughed, so there we go, is that I don't see that this is any real different to how it has been. And I don't see how you would have effective working parties without the relevant cabinet person being involved. So this seems to me a bit of tidying up. And I'll just say round behind the screen, I can see Councillor Foster, I can see Councillor Cal, I can't see Councillor. Oh, there we go. I can't, just waving at me. I mean, I hope that they won't use this as a reason not to come along to the facilitation sessions, because we've got to have more meetings like tonight, where I think we've worked incredibly well in a good-hearted way, dealing with serious problems and issues for the people of Torbay, and that's how people expect us to be. This looks very processy to me. This isn't something that the viewers at home are going to get terribly excited about, I wouldn't think. But they will get a bit upset if we can't, as a council, demonstrate that we can work together reasonably. So let's try this. You know, nothing's set in stone. Let's try this, but let's please go into these facilitation meetings with an open mind and see how we can work together. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. And it is disappointing because this really is a cleaning up exercise. It is something that we kind of published within the ways of working. It's something that we've discussed before. It's on a set of papers that we've kind of previously shared. And the bizarre thing is, actually, if we didn't set up a cabinet all-the-way working party or a road network and travel working party or even capital project working party, we'd be seen to be doing nothing and not moving forward and stagnating. And this is all about delivery. This is all about moving forward. And therefore, I really am happy to recommend the proposal that I put on the table earlier this evening, including that recommendation to go to council to set up that local plan working party. I did go through the membership, and I will confirm the membership as 3 Conservatives, 2 Liberal Democrats and 1 Independent. If you go through political balance on that, the Independents are massively over-represented out of 6 people. But I think we were looking for equilibrium across those working parties, and effectively that's what we're out to achieve. Therefore, we've had a discussion. It's been proposed and seconded, so I'll move to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. Thank you. That is unanimous. Thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen. And at, where are we? 6:55. The meeting is closed. Thank you.